I mean, they're good at their lives. And I get, yeah.
We've got the summer conference now, the multi-family units there, and now we're going to
Yeah.
yeah, I'll like those. All right, we're live, everybody. Okay.
Now,
Well, not to mention all that water.
yeah. Ready, call this meeting to order. Good evening. 5 o'clock. Let's do this. All right, we are going to forego the pledges until next year when we'll readdress that. Again, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Chairperson Andy Davenport.
Present.
All right. Vice Chair Lydia Johns.
Present.
Commissioner Thomas Pond.
President.
Commissioner Tamara Robertson.
Present.
Commissioner Chris Gagne.
President.
Commissioner Carson Bledsoe.
President.
Commissioner Josh Irwin.
President.
All right.
Oh, house.
We have. Woo! Nice to see everybody.
Are there any public
No,
comments?
sir. No public comment.
Good, we will move on to the consent agenda. Item number 1, approval of meetings from November the 2nd. So we've had 2 meetings since. We had our regular scheduled meeting on November 2nd, and we had a special meeting on November 15th. So we'll do those in order. Motion first to approve the regular meeting minutes from November 2nd.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes from November 2nd.
Can I get a second?
Second. Here, but I second.
All right. We can take a vote on that.
Vice Chair Lydia Johns.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas Pond.
Yes.
Commissioner Tamara Robertson.
Yes.
Commissioner Chris Gagne.
Aye.
Commissioner Carson Bledsoe.
Yes.
Commissioner Josh Irwin.
Yes, if I'm voting, I don't know if I'm voting or not, I'm altered.
Yeah, the 2 alternates.
Sure.
We don't-
Yeah.
All right.
Unless somebody's missing.
So call me for
That's
the
true.
meeting.
Okay.
Who's on the bench for today? And Chair Davenport.
Yes.
All right.
All right, that motion passes. Item number 2, the special meeting minutes. That's on page 6 of your handout.
Move to approve the minutes, Turner special session.
Thank you. Let me get a second. All right, very good.
Commissioner John, you're the second.
Tamara Robertson.
Yeah, Chamber was the second, because I wasn't here.
Well, roll call.
Ready.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas Pond.
I'm passed, so I was not moving.
Commissioner Tamara Robertson. Yea or nay? Yes. Yes, okay. Commissioner Chris Gagne.
Aye.
Chair Davenport.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lydia Johns.
Aye.
Thank you.
Outstanding. That concludes our consent agenda. We'll now move on to regular items. Suzanne, do you have an update on, so we were hoping to hear back from ORC, from Bud, from legal, from city legal, and also potentially from our city planners?
We did not hear from the ordinance review committee because they canceled their meeting last evening. They had a quorum and somebody got COVID, so they canceled. The feedback that we received from legal is actually item 4, page 9, and all he says was that these, meaning the short-term rental documents, look like they pretty well track the Arlington ordinance. This is a good starting point for discussion. I'll dig in more as we move forward. And then on page 11 is the response from our city planner, Brandon Milan.
Very good. Okay, great. That's what I needed to know. So we will go through this with just a brief recap to make sure we're all on the same page. The idea behind, so we're talking about short-term rentals now, And the idea behind it is that the city needs an ordinance regulating or authorizing or not short-term rentals. So there's two pieces to this. Piece number one is we have existing zoning definitions within our ordinance already, but only one of those areas says anything about STR. So it was recommended, and it says for specifically, STRs are allowed. But none of the other definitions say anything about STRs. So it was passed on to P and Z, hey man, would you all consider making a recommendation that we specifically define in all of the others where it doesn't say anything about STRs, no STRs allowed. So that's one problem that we did. So we took the existing ordinance and all we did was we added to the definitions, no STRs allowed. With the exception of, so SF4 we left alone, which says STRs allowed. And then with the multi-housing that was in H1, we potentially said STRs allowed. Okay, the concept behind this is we want to look at this from the perspective that whatever we do is going to be challenged. Okay, whatever we do is going to be challenged sooner or later. Someone is going to say, I disagree with this, I want to show you rental, I'm going to take you guys forward. So that's kind of our starting point. We need to do something because right now we have nothing. And we need to start from a perspective of, okay, well, we need to kind of work backwards and say, how can we position ourselves now so that we're ahead of the curve and we're proactive instead of reactive. To that end, what we've done is, and let me start by saying this isn't necessarily my opinion, but in the end, it's entirely possible that we end up with the city saying, no SPR left anywhere in the city. Okay, I'll acknowledge right now that's an entirely possible outcome. But what I don't want is for planning and zoning to be a small group of individuals who make that determination on their own and then push it out there. Okay? And then a year or two down the road, someone comes back and says, hey man, like that's a bunch of BS. We had a small group of P and Z people that completely made up their own ordinances and based on their own opinions without anything else, they just came up with these rules and said no SDR allowed. Okay? So what we're doing is we're trying to look at it from the opposite side. We're saying, okay, let's look at this from as if someone who wants to have an STR is going to challenge this. And P and Z, our starting point is, hey man, we hear you. We're going to gather all the input. We're starting from, we're taking, first of all, we're taking a known entity. So what the SPR documents, the origin of them, there are cities in Texas, specifically Houston and Austin, where SPRs have been challenged and the city has lost. And there are cities in Texas, specifically Arlington, where the city has been challenged and the city has prevailed. So our starting point, I didn't just invent all of this from my brain. I took what Arlington did already. That was the starting point. So okay, well it's worked in Texas for them. Let's start with that and then modify that to meet our needs. Okay, so that's our first starting point. And then our second starting point is let's at least start on P and Z by saying, hey man, we're here for y'all. We're open. Okay, and from reviewing other cities, we're going to try to accommodate anyone that wants to have a short term. And because of that, here's what makes the most sense in our city. It makes the most sense to have it here. It makes the most sense to have it here. And if that's our starting point, and then city planning comes back and says, you know what, man, that multi-housing thing, that's not going to work. For safety reasons, because it's not allowed in their lease agreements, because the landlord said no, whatever. Okay, great. We'll cross that one off our list, right? And if someone else comes back, if the citizens come back in a public hearing and say, we don't want this, we pull everyone in SF4, and they come back and say, nobody in SF4 even wants SPR. We say, okay. And then if this gets challenged in the future, our position is, hey, PMZ started with known documents from the beginning. We tried to we offered to put SPRs in all the areas of the city that made sense. Our city attorney came back and said no. City planning came back and said no. People came back and said no. No, what do you want us to do? Right? And that's a much more defensible position in the future than if we just sit here together and say, well, I don't want SDR, do you want an SDR? No, you don't want an SDR, let's just say no SDR. Okay, so that's kind of our starting, that's where we're starting. Okay, so having said that, in our last meeting, we asked for a few pieces of feedback. We asked for a legal review from Bud. We asked for the ordinance review committee to give us their feedback. And then we asked to have a public hearing because we want citizens. Somewhere in there, the city planning people decided to give us their feedback too, which is totally fine. We'll take anyone's feedback. We didn't ask for it, but they gave it to us, and that's totally. I gather that ORC was a little bit confused about what their role was. So just to clarify, what I think their role was, what I kind of tasked them with, if you want, is, hey man, there are some references within these SPR documents to things, for example, like noise or curfew or parking, okay? But the city already has ordinances, but we already have a noise ordinance, we already have a parking ordinance. So my intention wasn't to get the ordinance review committee to like read everything and try to recreate the wheel. It was simply to say, hey man, there's cross references to our existing ordinances. So we're not saying something in here that contradicts something that's already in existence. Okay? So that's ordinance, and then also ultimately this ordinance needs to live somewhere within our city codes. Our city code is divided into titles, and it's divided into chapters, and then those chapters, this one will probably fall under chapter 156. So our ordinance will ultimately probably be 156 dot blah blah blah. And we don't need to decide that, and that's something that the ordinance review committee commission. So that was kind of the task for ours. Okay, cool. So we're going to start. I'm sorry. Does anybody have anything to say in general about that before we move on to the individual?
Do you want me to get everything on the screen or?
It's everything that we have here, right? Yeah. No,
Except for the actual short-term record.
It's temp work.
Except for the actual short-term document.
Yeah, we don't. There have been no changes.
No.
It's the same. They're the same thing. So we will go through these emails and talk about those, but I don't think we actually need to see the specific documents.
So we're going to review this, a very short comment from the attorney and then the comment from the Brandon consultant.
Yeah, we'll go through each of these. We'll go through each of these agenda items, and someone will say something about it, and we'll make a decision about how we want to respond to that.
I guess I'd just say that from meetings that took place a while ago, most of the people here were not involved at the time. It was explained to us that if we had 0 areas within SPR available, that we are surely to lose in court. And that was SF4, which is this area right here. Kind of right off the North Pole, green is the only thing that is kind of grandfathered in, so we wouldn't be able to make a claim of no SPRs and keep out what has been grandfathered into them. They can sue anyway if they wanted to, but kind of thinking was that 0 places in the SPR would lose. In words, I guess I would just say for me as well, I've lived in a number of places around the country. I've definitely seen the downside of, I lived in Lake Tahoe, for example, where it was a ghost town in the shoulder season. Right? All the homes were owned by somebody in San Francisco. It was scary to live in. So definitely, I think we need to get out ahead because obviously Willow Lake is a tourist community to some extent, and I would hate for our neighborhoods to be basically vacant, sort of tourists around. But I'd also like to say, I think there is maybe an opportunity for some happy medium where you know, if somebody lets you essentially full-time, they're going into town, so they need a little bit of financial help, you know, us taking away their ability to make a little bit of their mortgage back. Doesn't, you know, I don't, just like I don't like the attorneys and planning agencies telling us how to live our lives in our own time. You know, if it's someone's private property, we live there most of the time, and we're trying to, you know, take a little bit of that back. I personally don't have strong opposition to something like that. However, it's not the same as somebody who's been buying a property so they can, you know, something that needs to be designated there or whatever. So, yeah, that's all.
Yes, sir.
I agree with you when it comes to those property stuff. I mean, this grandfather is actually built for short-term living, really. So, I mean, I'm more in favor of us sort of keeping that, not trying to mess with that. The other comment you had there, you know, I'm not here to represent my own ideas. I'm here to represent what the great majority of the people who live here, their desired and opinions. And as far as I can tell from the survey made last year, there seemed to be an overwhelming negative feeling about SDRs. Okay, so that's where I wanted to kind of talk in our discussion. But I'm more with you, President of this group here, that we should open it up so that we can minimize legal repercussions. But basically, my point of view is, if the great majority said we don't like SDRs, you know, that's what I'm going to be, you know, focused on. After the next public meeting, I'm sure we, you know, reiterate the same thing. And you know, I happen to live next to one of these illegal SDRs, and most of the time the guests there are behaving, but a couple of times they have not been behaving as best before, not from us, but from others, about noise levels, traffic and whatnot. So, you know, I'm very sensitive to that. Having said that, and I'm biased, I'm myself home for SDRs. Outside of Bushwick and outside of ETJ, okay? So I know both sides of the story, so to speak. So, anyway, okay.
I'll make one other comment, and this comes from my military background. You know, in the military, we've got our rules and regulations that we take along. And that's good and bad. I guess you know, everything's a two-sided coin. There's good things and bad. I will say though that with and we're going to get to this, I think, with some of the city planners' comments, but it can be a very slippery slope on many levels. So if you have definition for people and you say STRs are allowed here, they're not allowed here. Okay, well that's pretty black and white. That's pretty clear. If someone owns a property here, sorry man, you know, you could buy a property over there. But if you start to entertain, well, based on the size of your property, based on how long you've lived there, and based on whatever, how many cars you have, or what your neighbors think, you know, maybe we'll approve it for this guy, but we're not going to approve it for this guy.
Yeah.
But that's, all right, guys, give me your pen.
Yeah.
We heard, we use understand.
And then the other kind of caveat to that is the situations change. People come down here and they buy a house and they live in it for a few years while their kids go to school, and then their kids graduate and move on. And now the people that bought it as a residence, maybe aren't living there as much, they're only living there half time, or maybe they're going to pick up and move, and instead of selling that house, hey, if I can keep it as a short-term rental, maybe I'll do that. So it just gets very, I think it has the potential to get complicated and tricky very quickly if we're not, or if the city doesn't decide to be quite precise in how they do it. Okay. Item number 3, report from ordinance commission or committee. So okay, we I've already been told that that's not going to happen. So Suzanne, we'll get that at a later time at our next meeting. Maybe?
Their next meeting, I think, is January 3rd,
Okay.
and then y'all's is y'all's regular meeting is January 4th.
Okay.
And maybe by then they'll
Okay.
have a chance to do that.
Okay.
Review.
I'm not super concerned about their input because again, everything that we're doing, we're making the plan, we're making the recommendations to city council. City council will come up with the final product. And so sometime before this gets finalized, the ordinance review committee needs to conclude their work so that it's in with our other ordinances. I mean, it would be nice if there are any glaring contradictions to that up front, but that doesn't need to necessarily hold us back. That's more of an administrative sort of review. So we'll expect to hear back from them. So there is no report for number 3. You can cross that one off your list. Report from the city attorney. So that is a.
That was the one liner.
That was a very short.
Yeah, so I thought you had replied to things from the document.
Okay, page 9. We're looking at page 9 of our package.
Yeah.
And it's an email from Kent, aka Bud.
Mhm.
Okay, and what brought this about? Let's see, is it all on here? Yeah. Okay, so page 10, you can see what was referenced. Those are specifically the linked documents. Those are the documents that came from us that were published to the city's website for our meeting, and nothing has changed about those. So those are the documents being referenced. Anyone and everyone has access to those, and presumably, Bud went online and clicked through those. I gather that he has experience or some knowledge about Arlington's ordinances. Clearly, he says that he pretty much tracked those, so he recognized that. So it doesn't sound like he has any significant legal concerns at this time.
He's expressed a lot of legal opinions throughout this. I mean,
Yes.
I'm kind of surprised that it's really responsive to that way. I mean, I would think that we should come out and say that if we put this ordinance in place, that they will more likely hold out or not, or what revisions to make. So I mean, I kind of, this is not favorable, so I'm kind of disappointed that we
Well, I
take the time to do it.
Yeah, I expect, and I don't know, but he says this is a good starting point. I'll dig in more as we move forward. And this was right over the kind of Thanksgiving sort of break, and then we needed these documents. It may have been by the next day because it has to be published like 7 days before today. So I believe this was something like the day before he needed to say something. So I gather that he did a very cursory review and said, hey, on a big picture level, this was reasonable. But clearly, I said this from the beginning, what we produce will evolve. It will change. These are not final documents, and I would expect. I agree with you. I would expect that he will dig in more and probably give us some more firm recommendations. Now, again, our plan is to get input from him, to get input from the public, and then to draft our final for P and Z, not final for the city, but our final recommendation to the city council. And then this whole thing's going to start over. The city council is going to say, okay, well, now this is an art. Now we, city council, have to do something with this. I would expect then for the rubber to meet the road there. They'll probably have more public hearings, and they'll probably for sure get what I think is okay. This is about to get real. So.
And I'll probably hear he's January 7th. That's confirmed, right?
I don't know. Well,
It hasn't been confirmed, and it was only because of my email, I don't even know if you got it, this morning about instead of having a public hearing, I know your goal of the public hearing was to gather information. Having a public hearing as it relates to planning and zoning requires a mail out, which would require the permission by city council for the allocation of funds in order to do that mail out. And this is not on their agenda item for the December 14th meeting, so they wouldn't be able to address the allocation of funds for a public hearing until the January meeting, which is why I threw out the idea of maybe a town hall, which would be cheaper than a mail out. You know, if we did the same thing that we've done to VFW, and
Because the town hall is not the same as the public hearing,
Right,
right?
it's new
So-
formal.
Right, and so that would probably be better than having a formalized process or a formalized meeting where you have to send, because you have to send it to everyone in Woodbury. Like about,
I think at some point that, and maybe that's what city council.
it does, it actually occurs, for lack of a better word, it occurs naturally. Once you send all of your information gathering that you've done, and make a recommendation to council, we have all this information, there's a recommendation of having a public hearing.
My concern, Kevin, is, I think this is gonna be a hot topic in our community. And I gather that many people in our community aren't as in touch with what's going on with the city. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if something as significant as this came and went, and someone came to us and said, what? I didn't hear anything about that. Like, why wasn't I notified about that? So I think for, maybe for our purposes, and this is something we'll discuss, but maybe the public hearing goes, well,
Town hall.
that's not all thing. So maybe a town hall, and maybe we can, encourage people.
Yes.
But at some point, I mean, we have to let everyone know, and that gets back to the very beginning, when someone's gonna challenge this, someone is going to challenge this, right? And we have to be able to say, we mailed every single person in the city a letter. You had your chance to come with your opinion, and if you didn't do it, I'm sorry.
But that speaks against having a town hall. It's informer, it's nothing you can take to the lawyers and say, we got the opinion for the town hall. I think we should insist as P and C of having a public hearing, even if it may be delayed. So that everybody in the right can get, there are people who don't use computers and look at our fantastic website every day either. I think we should just be patient now, because before we make our recommendation to city council, we need to have some facts behind it. And if we have a public hearing and 9 out of 10 people speaking up there, reporting on video, saying that we absolutely think this is bad because we said that we have to, or good, that's the kind of evidence I would like to have before we make them the recommendation. So I would have to be patient, because that's what it takes to, get it done.
But you bet.
Okay, so we have worked on a comprehensive plan and all of those, you know, we had the big meeting over at the DFW hall and Brandon and them did all those visuals and everything. STRs were part of that. And we got a lot of feedback on that. So in the comprehensive plan, that is addressed, that's a very negative feeling item in the city. So, I mean, we've already got that start in there. And the comprehensive plan is, a spine document for the city planning. So, I mean, it can be amended, but I think we've got a lot of reason to be bringing this up at this point. Because,
So what I hear you saying is we've almost already had.
yeah, we've almost
It
had
wasn't,
it, you know?
it wasn't devoted wholly to SDR.
Exactly.
But it was to the community in general. A chunk of that was for SDR.
Yes.
We have a pretty good feel for sentiment, at least from the people who voluntarily showed up.
Do we have quantitative information? Do we have how many, what percentage of people were against and in favor? I mean, if there's a big comprehensive document, I don't know how many people are reading, it's like people.
Well, yeah.
But it addresses so many different areas. And right now we focus on one area. And again, I think we should, next to whatever tax payments people make, this may be the second most important item that people will be part of. I don't think we can rely on the document from a year ago.
It may be, I may have misunderstood. I think y'all are saying the same thing.
I think we are.
I think you're saying a public hearing is not sufficient. And she's saying we've already had a public hearing.
Well, I'm saying a public hearing should be.
I'm sorry, I'm getting my.
We've had a town.
We've had a town hall,
Right.
yeah. You're saying a town hall isn't sufficient, we had a public hearing, right? She's saying, yeah, we've already had a town hall, we don't need another one built, we need a public hearing.
That's,
Well,
okay, thank you. I was trying to,
I just need to hear it from Matt, right?
yeah, I'm sorry, I word dressed today. Back at you, promise. I was trying to look in here for the comprehensive plan document. How everything goes at names.
So can we ask if the city council to permit us to,
That's been the plan, from the beginning, let's have a public hearing, yeah. And what I hear Suzanne saying is, the only issue with that, are A, funding, it's not automatic, you don't have to request that
From city.
funding from city council. Yep. And then B, that introduces a little bit of a time delay, because of, with the name, that's.
I'd rather have a time delay and do it methodically.
To send that to council, if you wanted to formulate a motion to council, something to the effect of, recommending council, a request by P and Z to host a town hall, public hearing, regarding short-term rentals and the document. I don't know exactly what you want for the last part
Well, I was gonna say, we need to,
So who makes it?
do we need to finish off with this, with Brandon's information, or do you want to go ahead and go into that motion? Because we're kind of in a discussion.
Right, we started the, city attorney and jumped into discussion about public hearing versus town halls.
Yeah.
So we can make the motion when we get there.
Yeah.
You wanna do that?
I was gonna say, let's get to the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's
let's get back to,
things on-
yeah, perfect, so that's great. So, item number 4, does anybody else have anything to say about legal review to date?
No, I have a couple of things to say on Brandon's.
Okay.
That's all.
And again, we'll continue to communicate with Bud. The mayor has authorized his participation in this, so my perception is that he will be intimately involved in the review of these documents that we continue to move forward. Okay, item number 5 then is page 11.
Right.
Where does that go?
Okay, I highlighted a few things. So number 3, he was talking about the apartments being a very challenging area, which is that MF1. And not recommending clustering these two similar uses because of disturbances and, that sort of thing. And then he goes, on the surface, gives the appearance that the city is relegating undesirable use to a lower income residential area.
whose number is it?
That's on number 4, the last sentence on number 4. And he has a good point there. And then on number 5, he's also addressing MF1, feeling confident saying that I don't think the owners of the apartment complex are going to allow their tenants to rent out their units for short-term rentals. And I had that concern too, and I think I said something about that one meeting.
Let me interject for just a second. Like,
Okay.
we need that answer.
Yeah, we need that answer. We never.
You have that answer?
I emailed the apartment manager for those apartments. And, because I tried to obtain a copy online of their application, and that doesn't happen. So I did a contact us, specifically asked them if they allow short-term rentals or subletting in their apartments, we should say no.
Okay, well, that answers that
Exactly.
question.
We can, so based on that alone, we can effectively cross that off our list. We can say, hey man, P&Z tried, we identified all the areas in the city where this made sense. And because of legal reasons, because of the ownership of that property, there's nothing we can do about our hands.
Okay, so that's a good point. And then number 7, this is the one that I really focused in on. He said, I don't see anywhere in the ordinance where a certificate of occupancy is required in order to operate a short-term rental. I think that might be a good thing to have in the ordinance. It requires a certificate of
I don't
occupancy.
feel required to have it.
As a homeowner?
Well, it's an SDR.
No, it's a regular homeowner, I'm saying. I mean, when I added on the renovating my house, I was required to get a certificate of occupancy from the city, I believe.
I don't know.
That's from the, what, Commissioner Palmer's referring to is when, a building. When a home is completely built, and the builders, everything that the city's asked them to do, pay fees, make sure all the inspections are done, yada, yada, yada. Then the city will issue a certificate of occupancy to the builder that they give to the homeowner that says, okay, this house is ready to be occupied, period. That's all that certificate of occupancy means.
Okay,
And
so,
that number gets, like, when I go buy a house, there's no
This is
certificate.
when it's first being built or renovated.
Right.
So I mean, the city should have one back on five, even back to the seventies, when the city.
Well,
considered the
but
70s.
I'm thinking there's a double-edged sword here. So if we are going to approve that as a short-term rental as a city, then they need to meet all those specifications that we gave them. And then they would have a certificate of occupancy to be allowed to operate as an STR. So in other words, the smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, whatever it was that we had stipulated in that, I'm thinking that's what he's referring to. I could be wrong.
What I'm thinking is, you know how, like, you don't have like this, like a certificate of occupancy, X number of people can be in the home, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and
We specified, yeah, we specified all that out, but then the city would have to have someone that would go in and inspect that all of these things were done and sign off on it, and that would be the certificate of occupancy for that. Do you have to do that in memory?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense? I think that's what they're talking about here.
Yeah, and if it's not a big document, it should be. The only problem I see is that we can be accused of singling out those SDR owners from the rest of the citizens of Old Country, and they would argue that, well, everybody should have a certificate of occupancy. And again, the city didn't exist in the seventies, so most people don't have it, don't know about it, or.
it could be a nomenclature thing also. In our documents, we're not calling it a certificate of occupancy. The STR owner is going to the city and there's an application that they fill out. And I forget what the word is, but they're applying for a certificate that allows them to operate as an STR. And with that is an inspection list, and the city inspector goes in there and says, yes, they meet the requirements. Here is whatever the name of that document is. It says that you're on the Peters floor. Is there a fee with that there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And is that congruent with what the inspector will charge to go in there and inspect it?
Probably more than that.
Yeah, I don't know, because
This
that's
is
a
the
city.
250 that we had in the document.
That's fine. Yeah, because I'm curious.
I think it should be called something different than a certificate of
Conditional use permit?
occupancy. Just because. it's-
Nope. Just for recognition. I'm just asking, because I don't know. I mean, I'm totally oblivious to it, so I don't know what that is.
That might get confused with the previous
Yeah.
conditional use permit that was made.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, let's not get into disaster.
Well, the certificate of occupancy will be part of the documents necessary to get it back. Yes, at least in Whitby, that's our, it was one of the, and I think it's on our list as well.
I have to go back and look. Yeah.
And that's what it's called, the certificate of occupancy.
That's my, if I remember it correctly, yes, yeah. I mean, that's what we get here, we can move it now. But you have.
That's the building certificate of occupancy. I mean, y'all can call it maximum capacity certificate, and have the same rules like, an apartment is only supposed to have 2 people in one room. And gauge the maximum.
We have that, I mean, there's tentatively something that has to be posted in the house that specifically says, here's how many people are allowed to be here, here's how many cars, here's what the noise ordinance is, here's what time of curfew is. You can have that, you can't have that. Here's the 24/7 contact name and number, like that's whatever the name of that document is, and I'll go back and look it up, but we have a requirement that be created, approved by the city, inspected, and posted in the house. So
Well, and you have to have periodic checks on that too, because.
Well, that happens, I mean, that happens at
Yearly.
least annually. It has to be at least annually.
There should be apartments in the city to do it. And
Well, it doesn't even have to be profitable, it just has to at least cover the cost. You know, because I wouldn't want to bring anything to council where it's costing us to go out there and do inspection or whatever, but it should cover the cost of the council, so it means to add $25 for administrative, you know, for
Right.
people to look at that and schedule it, and also receive the quarterly short-term rental fees that are produced from that, you know, they may increase that.
Yeah.
Exact amount.
Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting thing, and I'm just sorry.
I have a couple of comments here.
I'm done.
And number 6 here is talking about these 7 properties by the whole number 1. And have the city reached out to them that that's irrelevant. They are grandfathered the way they are. And if they then choose not to rent them out, but their priorities, I don't think that comment is very relevant, honestly.
I'll play devil's advocate for just a second. I think if we specifically, how many houses are there? I'm just gonna make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's just say 7.
Yeah, it says that here.
Okay. So let's just say we specifically invited all 7 owners showed up at this meeting, and we told them, and they said, no SDR, no SDR, no. All of them said, absolutely no SDR. Okay. I think then we as a city could pass an ordinance that says, we've done our due diligence, we've tried, there would be no SDRs allowed in the city anywhere. But yes, I think if we ask Bud, hey, what do you think about that? He's like, yeah, let's try it, but because when they bought the house, it was allowed, at some point in the future, they could probably come up with a legal argument to at least challenge.
But if I'm going to remind you what you just said in the introduction here, as a city, we should have some areas designated as yours.
That's
If we have 0, and you were saying about as well, Chris, that if we don't have anything better, then we are opening ourselves up. So we have these 7 properties which are grandfathers SDRs. Let's not mess with them. I mean, I agree with you. I think all 7 will say we're not going to use SDRs, which means that you would have to undo the grandfathering somehow. I'm not sure if legally could do that. Since you said the introduction here, that it helps us to have some area designated. I think we should definitely do it, honestly.
Well, and the thing is, they have a choice whether to use it
Of course.
as one or not. You know,
And then this 9th thing there is the saying that, maybe we should look at by lot size and that's discriminatory.
Yeah, that should work. But, you know,
You're gonna-
Bud has to have some sort of comment on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems just to
Yeah.
start trouble.
I know, yeah.
well, and that gets back to my comment previously. If you say SDRs are allowed in SF4 and nowhere else, unless your lot size is 12,572 or greater, and you have a red car, and you go to the election, then you can have an SDR, right? You can be like, just one data point, this is my opinion, but in my previous life experience, you come up with areas that you designate, they're allowed here, they're not allowed here. So when I agree, when I read it, I was like,
Yeah.
that's a horrible idea.
I like it too.
And coming from him, I think surprised they actually do this in this direct.
Yeah.
Okay, any other commentary on Brandon Mellon's recommendation?
I'm not sure if you asked him to submit this, because you didn't ask him.
I think in our special meeting, here's what I think, in our special meeting, he was on the telephone making a presentation to us. And then Bud was sitting right over here. And I think we all talked about the discussion. Just kind of pulled into it, is what I think happened. Okay, very good. That takes care of item number 5. Item number 6 is a discuss and take action on setting a time and place for a public hearing for January 4th to hear the public's comments on the possible addition of STR.
This is for the motion.
Perfect. Let's have that.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we, send this over to council, for request to have a public hearing on short-term rentals and the documents that have been, drafted so far.
And then just to clarify, there's, like I said at the beginning, there are two, it started out as 2 separate pieces. They're kind of folded in together, which is fine. But we've got an existing ordinance and we're simply trying to add some definitions and zoning that are existing. And in addition to that, we've created 6 new STR documents. And what we're saying here is let's throw all of that to the public. This makes sense. All of that.
That's what you said.
I'm gonna put some discussion on that. And I think the idea behind this is to get a lot of input before we go forward too heavily into it. These are draft documents. There's nothing planted in stone. And they're working documents. It's kind of like a comprehensive plan. You start out with a plan and go forward and see where it goes. But I have a feeling it's still be a process.
I think we ought to have some comments from people to see how it see what we do. And they basically think that B and C is only in favor of introducing STRs across the board, which is totally contrary to what
Yes,
they say.
yes.
So the public hearing thing needs to be, like you were saying, we are actually trying to do the opposite, but this is the way we think it's legally better to do it, because they several comments from otherwise independent people, it's really.
Yeah, I've already had somebody say, what are y'all doing?
All I'll say is the end result is all that matters. People can steer, like water off the back, or whatever. The end result is what matters. And at the end of the day, we have a successful STR ordinance, and P and Z is able to say, we listened to everybody, we gave it the best shot, and we ended up with what we did because of the public, because of the attorneys, because of the city planners, because of right, and we can all say something. Okay, any other discussion on this?
Can you restate the motion? Just restate the motion.
Okay, so this is verbatim. The motion that P and Z send the city council for request for a public hearing on STRs and documents that have been drafted so far.
I think prior to P and C finalizing our final recommendation, yeah, so they don't say, so they don't see the council, well, we can do that later anyhow, so you can just,
Prior to finalizing the recommendation.
Is that a continuation, members?
Huh?
Is that a continuation of your motion?
Friendly amendment.
He's doing an amendment.
other road.
So prior to finalizing the recommendation to council.
On STRs.
All right, let's vote.
You want to say on that?
We
You were second on his? I didn't hear, I apologize. Okay, so voting on the amendment first.
Now, hold on, so
She took it as a second, she took it as an original motion, and then she stated his as an amendment.
okay.
You
I
want
just
to-
because a friendly amendment, so
Okay,
I let him amend my.
oh, okay, so I can do that.
Yes.
Okay,
Let's just vote on
One thing.
alright. Okay, so I'm going to start roll
In the
call.
interest of good
Commissioner Tamara Robertson. Aye. Commissioner Chris Dunne.
Aye.
Chair Andy Davenport. Vice Chair Lydia John.
I,
Commissioner Thomas.
Aye.
Okay, we are now moving on to agenda item number 7, discuss and take action on setting a time for a public hearing for January 4th, 2023 to hear the public's comments on the possible increase in minimum lot sizes.
Okay. Given that we just talked about this, should we just kick it to Cal?
Well, let me ask, somebody refresh my memory. I feel like in our 2 meetings previous, we came up with a recommendation on minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet. And we were done with that.
Yes.
What happened with that?
Unfortunately, the recording for y'all's meeting on October 5th or 6th.
Oh, that was one I'm sure.
I think it was that meeting. I have to look back, but your recording did not take. So the only recording we have is the one from the ordinance review committee meeting, which was actually a month prior. And there has been some discussion during that meeting to a document presented by Councilmember Hines, where there was, I think SF1 and 2 were 14,520, but then 3 was 14,020, and then the duplexes were 21,000. Sorry, I don't remember the rest of that number. But then ordinance review, it just said, well, let's just make all lot sizes 14,520, and then so now there's actually a request to review that motion. So we're going to be going back through the minutes to review that.
What prompted that discussion in the first place?
2 things. Well, maybe more than 2 things, but it did 2 things. One was the Brook Meadow overlay. So before, it hadn't been defined anywhere for the city lot sizes. And because of the Brook Meadow subdivision, the Brook Meadow overlay happened. Okay, well, we're now going to define this, but that was only for Brook Meadow. Then someone came along and said, well, we have to do this for the whole city. We have to prevent this from happening anywhere else in the city, we have to define what the minimum lot size is for the whole city. So Councilmember Hines, yeah, was at one of these meetings and presented some documentation and some numbers. We approved it.
But we also set a minimum of 1 acre for Brook Meadows.
Yeah.
Why do we?
Okay, so herein lies the issue. You have other lots within the city of Wood Creek that are larger than these minimums that could get subdivided to smaller lot parcels. So if we do not do this for the entire city and establish a minimum lot size, those lots could turn out like the one over in Albany. Yeah. You know, like they take a 2-acre lot and do really small, you know.
There is a kind of a point of clarification that the lots inside the city, even though they're undeveloped, are legally platted. So even if they are smaller than the 12,000 square feet that is required for water and sewer connection, which is in 155.43 in our ordinances, they can still be built upon.
Right.
So this does not affect them.
No, but the ones that are larger than
And how do we come up with 14,520?
Yeah, there was some math done, there was some review of lot sizes, and I specifically remember saying, hey man, I don't know anything about this, but I'm trusting you, this is your math. This is your math, and if you say it's good, then who am I to interject? I'm not gonna try to reinvent the wheel, figure out what that is.
I think it's a third
It's a third acre.
of an acre.
Yeah, it's a third of an acre.
And what about, how does that affect like the ETJ, like if we encompass in ETJ?
Down,
And that is, which,
where the minimum, and this was actually initially brought up during comprehensive plan review, and Mr. Milan realized that we didn't have minimum lot sizes, and if we are going to develop an ETJ, which is your question, that something needs to be standardized. Where this comes into play is, say, Joe Schmo has, 50 acres out in ETJ. And right now, it's platted with the county, it's his property. Well, he have to, whoever comes in and buys it from Joe Schmo would purchase that plot and they would subdivide that plot. So when you subdivide that plot, this is where the minimum lot size comes into play.
That's covered each year, that's.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why
That's
it's
to
important.
protect ETJ.
Yeah, that's why it's important that something is done.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, there's nothing, like I said, like Suzanne said, we're still gonna have these little lots that are already platted within the city. But if you go out to the ETJ and you have a 5 acre lot, subdivided, little bitty, 0 lot line,
From this developer that's something to do.
yeah, like this, yeah. This is to protect us from that.
And with 30% impervious coverage is also part of
Yes.
the EPA regulation.
Yes,
And platted within the city means that when something's platted as a piece of property in the city, that even if it is smaller than 12,000 square feet, will still be provided
Right.
sewer and water because it's platted.
but someone buys one of these bigger lots and wants to subdivide it, they can't subdivide it if
And that's
it's smaller.
very,
Right.
makes sense.
And I think there was a different lot sizes. Different lot sizes.
Oh, you mean the other stuff?
Yes.
That's, are you referring to what I mentioned before where the original part of ordinance reviews discussion was making a different, first,
Right. First it was, yes, different size lots, and then the other one was
and then
all zones.
yeah, it was, they had differentiated that, 1 through, well, basically everything, 1 through 6 was gonna be the 14,520, and then of course, townhouses and the MF1, MF2, of course, they're larger, the duplexes are larger, and then they discussed a 21,000 square foot minimum, and then I think that they made that motion with make them all 14,520 square feet, without remembering that the other ones are actually needing to be bigger, and that's kind of how that moved forward.
So you could be the duplex in 40,520.
It would be,
Yeah, it would be very small.
yeah. The whole thing, and because the motion's been challenged, and we're missing a video from planning and zoning, because
We need to redo
we need to review the ordinance review committee, motion that was originally made, I believe, in September 6th.
Well, why do we, what this says to me is that P and Z needs a public hearing.
Well, if it hadn't been challenged, would be, and it, because when we were gonna have the public hearing, it was again, an information seeking goal. But since you guys don't actually need to do a public hearing on a minimum lot size, because even though the motion has been challenged, you have made a motion on minimum lot sizes, so it's technically out of your hands. So you don't have to, so that would go up to council, and council happens to have this item on their agenda for next Wednesday. So they'll be revisiting this, but between now and next Wednesday, we'll be reviewing that other video and trying to get that motion, see where there's, if it was accurately reported, and then.
What does that mean it was challenged? Like, what happened?
I'm confused.
A council member thinks it wasn't recorded, it wasn't physically recorded correctly. So we're reviewing the video.
We're trying to find out what the exact motion
Exactly what
was,
you said.
the wording that was used
Right.
in the motion. And so that's why I asked, because one thing that I think that we need to work on is having a unique and distinct motion, where you just say the motion and kind of vote on the motion, because once all the talking gets going, sometimes it's really hard on
Yeah, it is.
Because they had to do it, so that's one thing that we're going back and researching.